Hello everyone, this is Dr. Muhammad Abrar and welcome back to our journey through the fascinating world of microeconomics. Today we embark on an exploration of the utility maximization concept found in chapter 7. We will delve into the foundational principles that govern how consumers make choices to maximize their satisfaction. Specifically, we will unveil the law of diminishing marginal utility and its profound implication on economic behavior. So, let's join me as we dive deep into the understanding how individuals allocate their unlimited resources to achieve a maximum utility. Utility refers to the satisfaction or pleasure that consumers uh, drive from consuming a good or services. Here it's very important to distinguish utility from usefulness or a benefit because many people just get confused. Are both the same? Actually, the usefulness pertains to the practical benefit or functionality of a product. Meanwhile, utility is more subjective and reflects the personal satisfaction or happiness a consumer's experience. So this subjective nature make the utility challenging to quantify objectively across individuals, as it varies based on personal preferences, taste, and other circumstances. So just for example, consider a consumer deciding between purchasing a chocolate or a bottle of water. So the utility derived from each depends not only the physical properties of the items, but also it depends on the consumer's current taste of thirst or hunger. If the consumer is thirsty, so the bottle of water might provide a higher utility at that moment, despite the chocolate bar being more pleasurable under different circumstances. So simply this illustrates how utility is not simply about the usefulness, but it's about the personal satisfaction and preferences at some specific or given time frame. The law of diminishing marginal utility, it states that as a consumer consume more unit of a good or services, the additional satisfaction or utility derived from each additional unit it will decreases. So this simple principle underpins the consumer behavior theory in economics. So it's explaining why the demand curve typically slopes downward. As consumers satisfy their more urgent needs with the initial unit of a good, so the marginal utility of consuming each subsequent unit will decline or diminishes. Just for example, consider a person eating a slice of pizza. So the first slice of the pizza satisfies their hunger significantly. The second slice of the pizza adds some satisfaction but less than the first slice of the pizza. And if it's continue to eat and by the fifth or the sixth slice, the additional satisfaction gained is minimal or even negative, maybe just due to feeling too full. So this diminishing marginal utility reflects how consumers allocate their limited income across various goods and services to maximize their utility or satisfaction. So this law of diminishing marginal utility helps explain the downward sloping demand curve in economics. As the price of the good decreases, consumers typically buy more of it because the marginal utility per dollar spent increases. And conversely, as the quantity consumed increases, the marginal utility decreases, leading consumers to demand less of the good at the higher prices. So the relationship between the price and the quantity demanded is fundamental to understand the consumer preferences and market behavior in microeconomic analysis. If we talk about the total utility and the marginal utility, basically as we discussed, the utility refers to the satisfaction or happiness that a consumer derived from consuming goods or services. It is measured in units, that's called utils. So the total utility represents the overall satisfaction obtained from consuming a specific quantity of a product or combination of products. So it is calculated by summing up the utils of each unit consumes. So for instance, let's suppose just an example, if consuming 1 unit of the good yield give you a 10 utils and consuming a second unit of that product will give you additional 8 utils. So the total utility after consuming both units would be 18 utils. So the marginal utility on other hand measures the additional satisfaction gained from consuming one additional unit of the product. It is derived from the change in the total utility when consuming an extra unit. Initially, the marginal utility tends to a positive, indicating that each additional unit consumed adds to the total satisfaction. However, due to the law of diminishing marginal utility eventually decreases as consumption increases. Every extra unit a consumer will use will having a less marginal utility compared to the previous unit. So this principle states that as a consumer increase more unit of a good or services within a given time frame, the additional satisfaction or the marginal utility from each additional unit tend to diminish. For example, just consider a person eating a slice of pizza. So the first slice consumes provides a high level of satisfaction. Let's suppose perhaps it's 20 utils. If he continue to eat and he eat the second slice, so while still enjoyable, may provide a slightly less satisfaction compared to the first slice. So let's suppose we said that he or she got a 15 utils from the second slice. So as the person continues to eat more slice, so the marginal utility decreases further for every extra additional unit. So let's suppose the third slide might be just added or give a 10 utils, and by the fourth slice the marginal utility could drop to the 5 utils or maybe even less than that. So this simple example illustrates the diminishing marginal utility. Each additional slice of pizza adds a less to the person's total satisfaction because they are already partially satisfied. So understanding these concepts, the total utility and the marginal utility or just a utility is crucial for analyzing consumer behavior and decision making. These concepts provide an insight into how individuals allocate their limited resources across various goods and services to maximize their overall satisfaction. Given the diminishing returns in satisfaction per additional unit consumed. If we can see this schedule and the diagrams in the first and the top diagram we have a total utility, and in the below diagram we have explained the marginal utility. So the curves, the total utility and the marginal utility are graphed from the data in the table. So as more of the product is consumed, the total utility increases at a diminishing rate. So reaches at the maximum and then decline. Marginal utility by definition reflect the changes in the total utility. So thus the marginal utility with increase the consumption becomes zero when the total utility as its maximum, and the marginal utility will be negative when the total utility start declining, as shown by the shaded rectangles, the marginal utility in the change in the total utility associated with each additional unit. So each new level of the total utility is found by adding a marginal utility to the proceeding level of the total utility. Let's suppose if we can just have a look on the table, on the first column we have a quantity consumed, and in the second column we have a total utility, and in the third column we have a marginal utility. So as we can see, the unit consumes are increasing from 0 to 1 till 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. We can see the total utility is increasing, but it's increasing with the decreasing rate. Like for the first unit, the total utility is 10. For the second, when he's consuming 2 units, and these 2 units together gives the 18 utils. And if he is consuming 3 units, all these 3 units all together is giving a 24 utils. If we have to calculate the marginal utility, that's just a change in the total utility due to change in consumed items. So the first item is giving a 10 utils. For the second item, we have to see how much is the change in the total utility. The total utility increased from 10 to 18. So it means the second unit consumes giving a 8 utils. And if we move to the third, so from second to third, the total utility increased from 18 to 24. So it's meaning the third unit giving us 6 utils. So every extra unit's marginal utility is less than the previous unit. So if we can draw this, the marginal, the number consumed units and the total utility in the upper diagram, we can see as the quantity is increasing, consumed quantity is increasing, the total utility first it was increasing with the decreasing rate, it reached to the maximum and when we was using 0.5 and 6, and then after that it start declining. And in relation, if we can see the marginal utility in the below diagram, on x-axis we have again a consumed unit, and on vertical axis, on y-axis we have a marginal utility. For the first item, the marginal utility was highest, and for the second it's decline, for third it decline again, and it's continue to decline as the every extra unit is consumed. So it reached to the zero when the marginal utility was maximum, and once the marginal utility start declining, the total utility when the total utility start declining, the marginal utility was negative. If we talk about the theory of consumer behavior, the rational behavior that assumes the consumers aim to maximize their utility or satisfaction given their limited income and the price of goods and services available in the market. So this concept is fundamental to understand the consumer decision making. Each consumer possesses clear preferences among the various goods and services offered in the market. So these preferences are guided by the concept of marginal utility, which indicate the additional satisfactions derived from consuming one more unit of a good or services. So furthermore, operate under a budget constraint. Every consumer have a budget constraint. It's their income level. So meaning they have a limited amount of income that limits their purchasing power. So this constraint force consumers to make the choices about how to allocate their income across different goods and services based on their preferences and the price of those goods. So prices in this context are assumed to remain constant regardless of the quantity purchased by the consumer. If you want to purchase a 1 unit, a 10 unit or 100 unit, price per unit will remain same. So that reflecting the idea that the goods and services are scarce relative to the demand for them. Let's suppose, if I can give a very simple example, just consider a consumer with a fixed monthly income who enjoys both coffee and tea. Sometimes he drink a tea, sometimes he drink a coffee. So let's assume the consumer face the following prices. So $2 per cup of coffee and $1.5 per cup of tea. So to maximize the utility, the consumer must decide how many cup of each beverages to purchase. If the consumer derives more satisfaction from coffee, which has a higher marginal utility per dollar spent, they might choose to allocate more of their budget to the coffee purchase. Vice versa, conversely, if tea provides a smaller level of satisfaction at a lower cost, consumer may opt to purchase more tea to achieve a utility maximization within their budget constraint. So he has to decide, he has to make the choice based on their level of satisfaction. Consumer equilibrium, that refers to the point where the consumers allocate their income in such a way that the last dollar spent on each product yields the same amount of extra utility or marginal utility. So this principle is based on the idea that consumer seeks to maximize their utility given their budget constraints. Algebraically, we can say the equilibrium condition is the marginal utility of product A in term per dollar, it must be equal to the marginal utility of B per dollar. So here the marginal MU that donates the marginal utility, and the prices are for the product A and B respectively. So we have two product A and product B. So the marginal utility of product A per dollar divided by the price of the A per dollar must be equal to the marginal utility of product B per dollar. So consumer make the decisions based on the marginal utility derived from each additional unit of the product relative to its price. So the consumer will continue reallocating their expenditure until the marginal utility per dollar spent is equal across all the goods what he want to consume. So this ensures the consumers maximize their utility without overspending on any product. If we can look this table, so that table just it assume in the table that the amount of the marginal utility received from additional unit of each of the two product is independent of the quantity of the other product. For example, the marginal utility schedule for apple is independent of the number of oranges obtained by the consumers. So when determining whether to buy the apples or oranges, we will compare the marginal utility per dollar. So in this example, we have a two product. We have apple and we have oranges. Apple have a price per apple is $1. That's a product A, and oranges per oranges price is $2. That's a product B. So first we need to calculate the marginal utility per dollar for the both product. So let's suppose in the first column we have a number of units, first apple or first orange, second apple or second orange, third apple or third orange, so on. And then we have a two product. First we have an apple. So the marginal utility of the apple, first apple's marginal utility is 10. And if we have to divide with its price, so it will be 10 divided by its price, $1. So the marginal utility per dollar of the first apple will be 10. If we can see next, that's the marginal utility of the orange. So the first orange is giving the marginal utility 24. But here, keep in mind, the price of the orange is $2. So marginal utility per dollar of the orange is 12. So the consumer spending $1 will get a 12 utils for the orange and 10 utils for the apple. So on for the next unit, if we can see in the next unit, the apples giving a utility, marginal utility 8 utils. And if we are calculating its per dollar, so marginal utility divided by its price, 8 divided by 1. So the answer will be 8 utils. Meanwhile, the orange, the second orange is giving a marginal utility 20. And if we have to calculate a per dollar, so the 20 divided by 2, 2 is the price, $2. So the marginal utility per dollar for the second orange will be 10 utils. And so on, we can calculate for all other products. So here we need to calculate at what particular point giving the budget line. In this example, the budget line is $10. So the consumer have a total $10 which he want to spend to buy some apple and some oranges. But here we have to apply that formula to to calculate the consumer equilibrium, that how many apple he will buy and how many oranges he will buy using his income level. Look at this simple table where we will find that how many apple and how many oranges the consumer will purchase to maximize their utility given in a given income level. So this illustrates how the consumer must choose among the alternative goods with their limited money or limited income. As long as one good provides a more utility per dollar than the other, the consumer will buy more of the first good as more of the first product is bought. It's the marginal utility diminishes until the amount of marginal utility per dollar just equal that the other product. So this table summarizes the step-by-step decision-making process in rational consumer will purchase to reach the utility maximization combination. So this algebraic statement of this utility maximization state is the consumer will allocate income in such a way that the marginal utility of apple per dollar must be equal to the marginal utility of oranges per dollar. Now let's suppose what will be his first choice. If you remember in the last slide, we calculated the first apple per dollar was giving a 10 utils marginal utility, and the first orange was giving 12 utils for the marginal utility for as a first purchase. So in this case, the consumer will decide to buy apple or oranges. Here we can see the oranges is giving a more marginal utility compared to the apple. So he will prefer to buy the oranges instead of apple. So he will spend $2 to buy the orange because price of one orange is $2. So he will spend $2 and he will buy the first apple, and he had a total income that is $10 and he spent $2, so the remaining still he have an $8 in his pocket, so he can do another purchasing, he can use and he can consume more. So he already bought it the first orange. Now what is his second preferences are the choice? He can buy the first apple or he can buy the second orange. So first apple is giving a marginal utility 10 utils and the second orange is giving marginal utility of 10 utils, so both are same. He will purchase both. He will spend $1 to buy the first apple and he will spend $2 to buy the second orange, and in total the consumer will spend $3. So out of 8 still he have a $5 in pocket, so he can go for the third preferences, a third choice. So in this case, no, he already bought it the first apple and second orange. So what is the next choice? He can buy the second apple or the third orange. Second apple is giving marginal utility of 8 utils, and the third orange is giving marginal utility of 9 utils. So the marginal utility for the third orange is higher than the second apple. So the customer will purchase the third orange compared to the second apple. So he'll spend $2 to buy the third orange, and he still have a $3 remaining in his pocket because he had a $5, he spent 2 and remaining he had a 3. So he'll go for the fourth preferences. So he already bought it the third orange. Now he can buy the second apple or the fourth orange. Second apple's marginal utility is 8 utils. Fourth orange marginal utility is also 8 utils. So he'll purchase both. He'll spend $1 for the second to purchase a second apple, and he'll spend $2 to purchase a fourth apple. So in this case, his remaining money will be 0. So he spent all his income to purchase apple and oranges. So he will buy 2 apple and he will buy the 4 oranges. With these purchase, his total utility will be maximum and the consumer will be in equilibrium. If we can look at this price that's driving the demand curve, as as we remember the previous example, when we had a apple and oranges, the price of the apple was $1 and the price of the oranges was $2. So at the price of $2, the consumers represented by the data in the table, but maximize utility by purchasing 4 oranges. Let's suppose if the price of the oranges decline from $2 to $1, what do you think? The consumer still buy the 4 oranges? He was buying a 4 oranges when the price was $2, because that time his marginal utility of the oranges per dollar was equal to the marginal utility of apple per dollar. But in case if the price of the oranges decline, so he'll buy the more quantity because the marginal utility of the oranges per dollar will be higher. So decline in the price of the orange to $1 distribute the income's initial utility maximization equilibrium. So the consumer restore equilibrium by purchasing a 6 oranges rather than the 4 oranges. So thus a simple price quantity schedule emerged which creates a 2 points on a downward sloping demand curve. You can see here at the $2, the consumer was buying a 4 unit of apples. At the price 1, he's buying a 6 unit of apple. If you join these curves, you will get the demand curve. Income and substitute effect on your satisfaction. So the substitution effect and income effect work simultaneously. The income effect is the impact that a price change has on a consumer's real income and consequently on the quantity demanded of the good. If the price of the good falls, income is freed up and can be used to buy more of both goods or either good under consideration. So the income effect is shown by the fact that a decline in price expand the consumer's real income or consumers the power of consumers income, and the consumer can purchase more of this and the other product until the equilibrium is once again attained for the new level of income. Meanwhile, the substitution effect is the impact that change in a product price has on its relative expensiveness and on quantitative demand. So if the price of the product falls, this decreases at the relative expensiveness, and thus the consumer will now substitute more of this good for the other goods. So when the price of an item decline, the consumer will no longer be in equilibrium until more of the item is purchased and the marginal utility of the item decline to match the decline in the price. So more of this item is purchased rather than another relative more expensive substitutes. The application and the extensions. Just imagine the first touch screen tablet or first computer, the first iPad, the first mobile phone was a new product that was popular with the consumers and perceived by them as having a greater marginal utility to price ratio than other alternative products. So this results in a major shift in demand from the new product as a consumer attempt to increase their total utility. So why do some goods that are essential to life have a low price and goods that are not essential to the life have a high prices? So the marginal utility of the last unit of the water that we are consuming every day is always small because we consume a lot of water every day. But the marginal utility of a diamond, of the last diamond, is larger because we consume a very few diamonds. That's why. Similarly, the time also has a value. So this must be considered in decision making and utility maximization. When time is considered, consumer behaviors appears to be much more rational. High skilled people like doctors, they always earn high wages and therefore in occur a higher opportunity cost whenever they use their time in some other way. So they are more likely to buy goods over the internet through the online and pay higher prices for things that will save them their time. Meanwhile, the unskilled workers or retired have low opportunity cost for their times because they are free, and therefore will use the time to search out the ways to save the money. They are more likely to search for bargains and take longer trips if it saves them a small money. Even they'll search a different malls where there are promotions. They'll drive and they'll go a longer way to get the products to just save a pennies because they have a plenty of time. So the foreigners observe that the Americans waste material goods but conserve the time. So this could be because our high productivity makes our time more valuable than maybe many of the goods we waste. With medical care purchase, we may an upfront fixed charges each month, and this charge is not affected by the amount of we consume. So the additional marginal benefit is higher than the marginal cost of additional use. This explains why we use so much more than if we have or if we had to pay full price. Another way, if we talk about the non-cash gift or the cash gifts, so the non-cash gift result in loss of utility as sometime as we then take actions to maximize our utility, such as if someone will give you a gift, maybe it's not fixed as per your preferences and you will prefer to take it back or you want to exchange with another product. So non-cash gift may yield the less utility to the receivers than a cash gift of equal monetary value, because the non-cash gift may not match the receiver's preferences. So individual knows their own preferences much better way compared to the gift giver. So that's why the non cash gift will having a less uh, utility. If we talk about the criminal behaviors and utility, as in the start of the chapter I told you, the utility is not as of usefulness. Utility is a level of satisfaction, or it's a level of happiness for the consumer by consuming or using some kind of activities. So the cost of the criminal activity that consists of a guilt one may feel after doing that activity, or maybe supplies and the tools needed for the crime, and foregone the income for the lawful activity. So these costs are too high for the most peoples. However, for those who find their utility of, of crime so exceed these costs of the crime, many may be further deteriorated due to the cost of society imposed on the lawbreakers, such as there are different kind of fines that is applicable if there is a crime happens, or possible imprisonment as well. So economic analysis provide ideas to reduce the crime that include a way to increase the cost of the crime further. So this could be achieved by raising the guilt, the cost through a family, educational, and maybe the religious factors as well, as well as the increasing the direct cost that the criminal bear of using more strict security systems, increasing the cost incurred from the foregone, maybe more penalties, maybe more strict imprisonment, etc. Anyone or all of these could thwart crime by raising the marginal cost of that activity to the point that it exceeds the marginal benefit. If we can give a very simple, a very quick example, let's suppose we all are driving on the roads, and there are some laws and rules of the driving. There are some penalties if you will violate the driving laws. One of them, let's suppose we are talking a red light. I mean, if someone is jumping the red light and someone is just violating the red light signal, So there will be some plenty on that. If the amount of the plenty will be higher, there will be a there will be I mean there will be less marginal utility to do that, and many will not do that. If the fine to jump the red traffic light is very less or minimal, so it's mean that many people will believe the cost to do that crime is less, and for them the utility is higher, so many will do that. So there is that's why it's very important to understand the marginal utility and marginal cost concept, even to prevent the crimes in a country or in a city. So where the states and the governments can implement a high marginal cost for those activities to prevent or to stop those activities. That's all for today's lecture. If you have any question, comments, or feedback, please feel free to share them in the comment section below. Also, if there are some specific topics you would like me to cover in future lectures, so just mention them there in the comment section. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more informative lectures and learning content. Your support help us continue to provide a valuable educational material. Thank you once again for being part of this virtual gathering. I look forward to seeing your comments and engaging with you further. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring. Thank you.